A heart-breaking point. Jasmine Rivers pressed the elevator button for the 9th time, her vision blurred by tears that refused to stop falling. The glass walls of the downtown Chicago skyscraper reflected a woman she barely recognized anymore. 6 months ago, she had arrived from Houston with dreams bigger than the Texas sky. Now those dreams felt crushed under the designer heels of Patricia Caldwell, her supervisor who seemed to take personal pleasure in making Jasmine's life miserable. The envelope in her trembling hands contained her resignation letter, written at 2 a.m. after Patricia had publicly humiliated her during the afternoon meeting. In front of 20 colleagues, Patricia had thrown Jasmine's market analysis into the trash, declaring that small-town girls clearly lacked the sophistication for big-city finance. The memory made Jasmine's chest tighten with anger and shame. Huntington Global Industries occupied floors 8 through 15 of the Morrison Tower. Jasmine had worked on the 11th floor since January, analyzing investment portfolios and creating financial projections that Patricia routinely claimed as her own work. Today was supposed to be different. Today, Jasmine would finally stand up for herself. The elevator dinged, announcing her arrival on the 14th floor. Jasmine's heart pounded as she marched down the marble corridor, her practical flat silent against the expensive flooring. Patricia's office was supposed to be at the end of this hallway. Through her tears and determination, Jasmine counted the doors. The unexpected encounter. Without knocking, Jasmine pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped inside, her prepared speech already forming on her lips. "I cannot take this anymore, Patricia," she began, her voice shaking with emotion. "You have made every single day a nightmare for me. You steal my work, belittle my background, and treat me like I am invisible. Well, I am done. Here is my resignation, and I hope you are happy now." The words hung in the air for 3 long seconds before Jasmine realized something was terribly wrong. The office was too large, too elegant. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Lake Michigan in stunning panoramic view. The furniture was modern and expensive, nothing like Patricia's cluttered workspace. And the man behind the massive desk was definitely not Patricia Caldwell. Blake Huntington looked up from the contract he had been reviewing, his steel-gray eyes widening slightly in surprise. At 38, he possessed the kind of presence that made boardrooms fall silent. 6 feet 3 inches of controlled power, with dark hair just beginning to silver at the temples and a jawline that could have been carved from granite. He wore his authority like a second skin, comfortable and absolute. But what struck Jasmine most in that horrifying moment was not his commanding presence or obvious wealth. It was the way he looked at her. Not with the annoyance or dismissal she expected, but with something that resembled genuine concern. "This is not Patricia Caldwell's office," Blake said, his deep voice surprisingly gentle. He set down his pen with deliberate care. "This is my office. I am Blake Huntington." The resignation letter slipped from Jasmine's fingers and fluttered to the Persian rug. Mortification flooded through her, hot and overwhelming. She had just burst into the CEO's private office, crying and yelling about workplace problems. Her career was not just over. It was obliterated. "Oh my God," Jasmine whispered, taking an instinctive step backward. "Sir, I am so sorry. I thought this was someone else's office. I will leave immediately. Please forget this ever happened." She turned toward the door, desperate to escape, but Blake's voice stopped her. "Wait." It was not a command exactly, more like an invitation. "Please do not leave yet." An unexpected kindness. Blake rose from his chair with fluid grace and walked to a sideboard near the window. Jasmine stood frozen, watching as this powerful man she had only seen in company newsletters retrieved a crystal glass and filled it with water from an elegant pitcher. He approached her carefully, as if she might bolt at any sudden movement. "Here," he said, offering the glass. "Take a moment to breathe." Jasmine accepted the water with shaking hands, too stunned to do anything else. Up close, Blake Huntington was even more intimidating, but something in his gray eyes made her feel safe rather than threatened. They held intelligence and intensity, but also an unexpected warmth. "Thank you," she managed, taking a small sip. The cool water helped clear some of the fog from her mind. "Now," Blake said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Would you mind telling me what brought you to my office in tears, ready to resign from a company you clearly care about deeply?" Jasmine blinked at him. "You want me to tell you about my problems? But you are the CEO. You must have much more important things to worry about than one confused employee who cannot even find the right office." A slight smile touched Blake's lips, transforming his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. "I built this company on the principle that every employee matters. If someone on my team is suffering enough to resign in tears, that becomes my most important concern. Please, sit down. Tell me what happened." Walls coming down. Jasmine sank into the chair, her professional training warring with her emotional exhaustion. She should make an excuse and leave. She should protect what remained of her dignity. But something about Blake Huntington's patient attention and genuine concern cracked the walls she had built around her pain. "My name is Jasmine Rivers," she began quietly. "I work in the investment analysis department on the 11th floor. Or I used to work there, I suppose." "Used to?" Blake leaned against his desk, arms crossed, giving her his complete attention in a way that made Jasmine feel like the only person in the world. "I was planning to resign today. After what happened this afternoon, I just could not take it anymore." The word started slowly but gained momentum as months of frustration found their outlet. Jasmine told him about Patricia's constant criticism, how her supervisor claimed credit for Jasmine's best work, how she was mocked for her Texas accent and small-town background. She described the humiliation of having her analysis thrown in the trash during the meeting. Blake's expression grew darker with each detail, though his voice remained calm when he spoke. "How long has this been happening?" "Since Patricia became my supervisor 4 months ago," Jasmine admitted. "At first, I thought I was being too sensitive. I am from a small town, and I know big city business can be tough. But this feels different. This feels personal and cruel." "It is cruel," Blake said flatly. "And it is completely unacceptable." He moved behind his desk and pressed a button on his phone. "Jennifer, please clear my schedule for the next 2 hours and bring me Patricia Caldwell's employment file. Also, I need the contact information for everyone in the investment analysis department." Jasmine's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Blake met her gaze with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I am fixing a problem that should have been addressed months ago. And Jasmine, I want you to know something important. Your resignation is not accepted. You are exactly the kind of talented, passionate person this company needs. The problem is not you. It never was." A moment of connection. Something passed between them in that moment, a connection neither could fully explain. Jasmine felt it in the way Blake looked at her, as if she mattered beyond her job title or productivity metrics. As if he saw her, truly saw her, in a way no one else had since she arrived in Chicago. Blake felt it too, though it unsettled him in ways he did not expect. He had built his reputation on logic and control, keeping personal feelings separate from business decisions. But watching this brave, broken woman stand up for herself despite her tears awakened something protective and powerful in his chest. "I do not know what to say," Jasmine whispered. "Then say you will give me a chance to make this right," Blake replied. "Give me a chance to show you that Huntington Global Industries can be the place you dreamed it would be when you first arrived." Jasmine looked into those gray eyes and saw sincerity she had almost forgotten existed in the corporate world. "Okay," she agreed softly. "I will stay." Blake's smile was worth every tear she had cried. "Good. Now, would you mind waiting here while I make some calls? I promise you, Patricia Caldwell will answer for what she has done. And Jasmine, one more thing." "Yes?" "Thank you for walking through the wrong door today. Something tells me it might have been exactly the right door after all." A new beginning. 3 days had passed since Jasmine accidentally walked into Blake Huntington's office, and her world had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. Patricia Caldwell had been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation, and Jasmine found herself reporting directly to the executive floor while Human Resources conducted interviews with the entire investment analysis team. But the most surprising change was Blake himself. The intimidating CEO had developed a habit of appearing at her temporary desk with coffee every morning, always prepared exactly how she liked it with 2 sugars and a splash of cream. How he knew her coffee preference remained a mystery that made her smile every time she thought about it. "Good morning, Jasmine," Blake's deep voice sent familiar butterflies dancing through her stomach as he approached with 2 steaming cups. He wore a charcoal suit today that made his gray eyes look like storm clouds, and Jasmine had to remind herself to breathe normally. "Good morning, Blake," she replied, accepting the coffee with a grateful smile. Over the past few days, he had insisted she drop the formal titles when they were alone. "You really do not have to keep bringing me coffee. I am perfectly capable of getting my own." "I know you are capable," Blake said, settling into the chair across from her desk with an ease that suggested he belonged there. "But I enjoy doing it." "Is that allowed?" The way he looked at her made Jasmine's cheeks warm. There was something in his gaze that went beyond professional courtesy, something that made her heart race and her thoughts scatter. "I suppose I can allow it," she said, trying to sound casual despite her racing pulse. Blake's smile widened, and Jasmine noticed the small dimple that appeared in his left cheek. How had she never noticed that before? "How is the Morrison project analysis coming along?" "Almost finished," Jasmine said, pulling up the spreadsheet on her computer. As Blake leaned in to view her work, his shoulder brushed against hers, and the subtle scent of his cologne made her dizzy. "I think we can increase the projected returns by at least 15% if we adjust the investment timeline." "Brilliant," Blake murmured, his eyes scanning her work with obvious appreciation. "You have an incredible talent for seeing patterns others miss. Have you ever considered moving into strategic planning?" Before Jasmine could respond, a throat cleared loudly behind them. They both turned to find Trevor Knight standing in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes cold with calculation. Dangerous games. Trevor Knight had worked at Huntington Global for 5 years, steadily climbing the corporate ladder through a combination of competence and strategic networking. At 32, he possessed the kind of conventional good looks that photographed well at company events. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and a smile that never quite reached those eyes. He had asked Jasmine out twice during her first month at the company, and both times she had politely declined. "Blake, I apologize for interrupting," Trevor said smoothly. "But you have the quarterly review meeting in 10 minutes. Blake glanced at his watch and sighed. "Thank you, Trevor. I will be right there." He turned back to Jasmine, and his expression softened in a way that made Trevor's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Would you like to have dinner tonight? There is a new strategy I want to discuss regarding the European markets, and your insights would be invaluable." Jasmine's heart leaped into her throat. Dinner. With Blake. Was this business or something more? "I would like that very much." "Perfect. I will pick you up at 7. Blake stood, his hand briefly touching her shoulder in a gesture that felt both protective and intimate. "And Jasmine, wear something comfortable. We are going somewhere special." After Blake left, Trevor lingered in the doorway, his pleasant expression hiding something darker beneath. "Be careful, Jasmine," he said quietly. "Blake Huntington is way out of your league. Men like him do not seriously date women like you. They just use them for entertainment before marrying someone from their own world." The word stung, hitting insecurities Jasmine had been trying to ignore. "That is none of your business, Trevor." "I am just trying to help," Trevor said with false sympathy. "I would hate to see you get hurt when reality catches up with your fairy tale." After he left, Jasmine stared at her computer screen without seeing it. Trevor's words echoed Patricia's warnings, and doubt crept into her mind like poison. Was she being foolish? Was Blake just being kind, and she was reading too much into his attention? Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Rachel Kim, her roommate and closest friend in Chicago. Emergency lunch needed. Meet me at Tony's in 20 minutes. I have news about your situation at work that you need to hear. Revelations and warnings. Tony's Italian bistro was halfway between Jasmine's office and Rachel's law firm, a cozy establishment where they had shared countless meals and conversations since Jasmine moved to Chicago. Rachel was already seated in their favorite booth when Jasmine arrived, her expression serious. "Okay, you are scaring me," Jasmine said, sliding into the booth. "What is going on?" Rachel, a sharp corporate lawyer with Korean heritage and a protective streak wider than Lake Michigan, leaned forward. "I did some digging after you told me what happened with Patricia. Jasmine, she has connections you do not know about. Her brother is Martin Caldwell, who sits on Huntington Global's board of directors." Jasmine felt her stomach drop. What? But why would Blake put her on leave if her brother is on the board? Because Blake Huntington has principles, which is rare in this business, Rachel said. But that also means Patricia will fight back hard. My sources say she is already spreading rumors about you trying to sleep your way into Blake's good graces. That is ridiculous, Jasmine protested, but her voice wavered. Nothing inappropriate has happened between us. Rachel gave her a knowing look. But you want it to, do you not? I can see it in your face every time you mention his name. You are falling for him. Jasmine could not deny it. Over the past 3 days, Blake had shown her kindness, respect, and attention that made her feel valued in ways she had forgotten were possible. What if I am? Is that so terrible? No, it is not terrible at all, Rachel said gently. Blake Huntington is a good man from everything I have heard. But you need to be prepared for what is coming. Patricia will not go quietly, and there are others who will not want to see Blake involved with someone they consider beneath his status. As if summoning trouble by speaking of it, a stunning woman walked into the bistro, immediately drawing every eye in the room. She was tall and elegant, with platinum blonde hair styled in perfect waves and wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Jasmine's monthly rent. Her blue eyes scanned the restaurant with the confidence of someone who had never been denied anything in her life. Who is that? Jasmine whispered to Rachel. Rachel's expression darkened. That is Vanessa Ashford. Her family owns half the real estate in downtown Chicago, and she has been trying to land Blake Huntington for the past 2 years. If she finds out about you too, things are going to get very complicated. Vanessa had not noticed them yet, too busy talking on her phone in a voice loud enough to be clearly heard. Daddy, I told you, Blake and I are having dinner on Friday. Yes, I know the merger depends on it. Do not worry, he will see that we are perfect together. We always have been. Jasmine felt her heart sink. Blake had dinner plans with Vanessa? The same Blake who had asked her to dinner tonight? Rachel grabbed her hand. Do not jump to conclusions. Hear him out first. But doubt had already taken root, fertilized by Trevor's warnings and her own insecurities. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she was just a small-town girl playing in a league far beyond her reach. An evening of honesty. Despite her doubts, Jasmine found herself getting ready for dinner that evening, changing outfits 4 times before settling on a simple emerald dress that Rachel insisted brought out the gold flecks in her brown eyes. When the buzzer rang at precisely 7, her heart hammered against her ribs. Blake stood at her door holding a single white rose, looking devastatingly handsome in dark jeans and a fitted shirt that showed off his athletic build. For a moment, he just stared at her, and something heated and wonderful flickered in his gray eyes. You look absolutely beautiful, he said softly. Thank you, Jasmine replied, accepting the rose and trying to ignore how her hand trembled slightly. You look very nice too. Blake drove them to a small French restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, nothing like the flashy establishments Jasmine imagined a CEO would frequent. Inside, the atmosphere was intimate and warm, with soft jazz playing and candlelight flickering on white tablecloths. "This place does not look like much from outside," Blake explained as they were seated in a private corner booth, "but the owner, Pierre, is a dear friend from my college days. He left investment banking to follow his passion for cooking. Best decision he ever made." Throughout dinner, Blake asked Jasmine about her life in Houston, her family, her dreams beyond finance. He listened with genuine interest as she described growing up with 3 brothers on a ranch, how her father taught her to ride horses before she could properly walk, how her mother's death when Jasmine was 16 had nearly broken their family. "You are incredibly strong," Blake said quietly, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. The touch sent electricity shooting up Jasmine's arm. Coming to a new city alone, building a career from nothing, standing up to someone like Patricia. That takes courage most people never develop. "I do not feel very courageous," Jasmine admitted. "Especially when people keep warning me about getting involved with you." Blake's expression darkened. "Who has been warning you?" Jasmine told him about Trevor's comments and seeing Vanessa at the restaurant. She watched Blake's face carefully, looking for signs of deception or dismissal. Instead, Blake sighed and squeezed her hand gently. "I want to be completely honest with you, Jasmine. Vanessa and I do have dinner plans on Friday, but it is purely business. Her father wants to discuss a real estate partnership, and Vanessa insisted on being there. I have never dated her, never led her to believe we had any future beyond professional acquaintance. But she is persistent, and her family's business matters to the company." "And Trevor?" Jasmine asked. "Trevor is ambitious and sees you as a threat," Blake said bluntly. "You are more talented than he is, and you have my attention in ways he has always wanted. He will do whatever he can to undermine you." Blake leaned forward, his gray eyes intense and sincere. "Jasmine, I need you to understand something. I am not playing games with you. What I feel when I am around you is real and terrifying and wonderful. You walked into my office 3 days ago, and somehow you walked into my life in a way no one else ever has. I know we have complications. I know people will talk and scheme and try to tear us apart. But I want to try anyway, if you will let me." Jasmine felt tears prickling her eyes, but these were happy tears. "I want to try too. But Blake, I am scared. Your world is so different from mine. What if I do not fit? What if I embarrass you?" Blake stood and moved to her side of the booth, sliding in next to her and cupping her face gently in his hands. "You could never embarrass me. You are smart, kind, talented, and real in a world full of fakeness. If anyone does not accept you, then they do not belong in my life either." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Jasmine did not want to pull away. When their lips finally met, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative and sweet, but it quickly deepened into something more passionate. Blake's hand slid into her hair while Jasmine gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Blake rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the moment you burst into my office crying." Jasmine laughed, a sound of pure joy. "That is a strange moment to want to kiss someone." "Everything about us is strange and unexpected," Blake murmured, kissing her softly again. "And I would not change a single thing." Darkness gathering. What neither of them knew was that across the restaurant, hidden in shadows near the bar, someone had been photographing their entire evening. Trevor Knight scrolled through the images on his phone with satisfaction, stopping on the particularly intimate shots of Blake and Jasmine kissing. He typed out a message to Patricia Caldwell, "Got what you need. Pictures are crystal clear. When do I get my promotion?" Patricia's reply came quickly, "Perfect. Forward them to my brother immediately. Blake Huntington is about to learn what happens when he crosses the Caldwell family." And that little nobody from Texas will finally understand where she really belongs. In another part of the city, Vanessa Ashford stared at her phone in disbelief at the message from her friend who had spotted Blake and Jasmine at the restaurant. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against her wine glass as fury built in her chest. Blake Huntington was supposed to be hers. Their families moved in the same circles, attended the same charity galas, belonged to the same exclusive clubs. Some small-town nobody was not going to steal what Vanessa had been patiently cultivating for 2 years. She made 3 phone calls that night. By morning, the entire Chicago social scene would know that Blake Huntington was slumming with an inappropriate employee. By tomorrow evening, Jasmine Rivers would wish she had never left Texas. The battle lines were being drawn, and Jasmine and Blake had no idea that the real war was just beginning. The storm breaks. Jasmine arrived at work Monday morning feeling happier than she had in months. The weekend with Blake had been perfect, filled with long walks by the lake, deep conversations over coffee, and kisses that made her forget every worry. He had not pressured her for more than she was ready to give, content to just be together, learning everything about each other. But her happiness evaporated the moment she stepped off the elevator. Every conversation stopped when she appeared. Colleagues she had considered friendly suddenly found reasons to avoid eye contact. Whispers followed her down the hallway like malicious shadows. Rachel was waiting at Jasmine's desk, her expression grave. "We need to talk. Privately." They found an empty conference room, and Rachel closed the door firmly before turning to face Jasmine. "Someone leaked photos of you and Blake kissing at the restaurant Friday night. They are all over social media, and the gossip sites are running stories about Blake's inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee." Jasmine felt the blood drain from her face. "What? How did anyone get those photos?" "That is what we need to figure out," Rachel said, pulling up a gossip website on her tablet. The headline made Jasmine feel sick: Huntington Global CEO caught in steamy affair with junior employee. Workplace romance or abuse of power? The photos were intimate and damning. Blake holding her face tenderly. Their foreheads pressed together. The kiss that had felt so private and special, now displayed for the world to judge. "This is a disaster," Jasmine whispered. "Blake's reputation, the company, everything I worked for. It is all destroyed." "Not yet," Rachel said firmly. "But you need to talk to Blake immediately. He needs to know what is happening before the board gets involved." Jasmine tried calling Blake, but his phone went straight to voicemail. His assistant Jennifer informed her that Blake was in an emergency board meeting and could not be disturbed. A meeting Jasmine suspected was about her. 2 hours later, Trevor appeared at her desk wearing a smile that made Jasmine's skin crawl. "The board wants to see you. Conference room A, immediately. Facing the wolves." The boardroom on the 16th floor was designed to intimidate, with its massive mahogany table, leather chairs, and walls lined with portraits of past company leaders. 8 board members sat along the table like judges at a trial, and Jasmine recognized Martin Caldwell, Patricia's brother, sitting at the far end with undisguised hostility in his eyes. Blake stood near the windows, his back rigid with tension. When he turned and saw Jasmine, relief flooded his expression, but he made no move toward her. The message was clear. In this room, they had to maintain professional distance. "Miss Rivers," Martin Caldwell began, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "Thank you for joining us. We have been reviewing some disturbing information regarding your relationship with our CEO." He pulled up the photos on the large screen at the front of the room. Jasmine felt humiliation burn through her as their private moments were displayed for strangers to scrutinize. "These photos suggest an inappropriate relationship that violates our workplace conduct policies," Martin continued. "We are concerned that Blake may have used his position to coerce you into this relationship, or alternatively, that you used your feminine charms to gain favorable treatment." "That is absolutely false," Jasmine said, finding her voice despite her fear. Our relationship began after my workplace issues were already being addressed. Blake has never coerced me into anything, and I have never asked for special treatment. Yet you received a promotion and transfer to the executive floor shortly after your first meeting with Blake, another board member pointed out. Some might see that as suspicious timing. Blake stepped forward, his voice hard as steel. Jasmine received that transfer because she is exceptionally talented and was being systematically abused by her supervisor. A supervisor, I might add, whose brother sits on this board and may have protected her misconduct for months. Martin's face reddened. How dare you accuse my sister without proof? I have proof, Blake said coldly. Hours of documented abuse, testimony from multiple employees, evidence that Patricia repeatedly claimed Jasmine's work as her own. Should I continue? The room fell silent. Blake moved to stand beside Jasmine, and though he did not touch her, his presence felt like a shield. Let me make something absolutely clear. My relationship with Jasmine is real and consensual. We did not plan it, but I am not ashamed of it. She is extraordinary, and if this board has a problem with that, then perhaps we need to discuss who really belongs in this company. Blake, be reasonable, an older board member said more gently. We are not questioning Miss Rivers' character or abilities. But the optics of this situation are terrible. The media is already running stories. Our shareholders will demand answers. There are consequences. Then I will face them, Blake said simply. But I will not end this relationship to appease gossips or protect people who abuse their power. Martin Caldwell smiled coldly. Then perhaps it is time for you to step down as CEO. The board has been discussing your leadership for some time now. This scandal simply accelerates the inevitable. The other board members shifted uncomfortably, but none contradicted Martin. Jasmine realized with horror that this had been planned. They had been waiting for an opportunity to remove Blake, and she had given them the perfect excuse. No, Jasmine said suddenly, her voice ringing clearly in the silent room. This is my fault, not Blake's. I will resign immediately. Blake can tell the press that he ended the relationship as soon as he learned about the photos. His reputation will recover, and the company will be fine. Blake turned to her, his expression fierce. Absolutely not. Jasmine, we talked about this. That was before I understood what this would cost you, Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face. I cannot let you lose everything because of me. An unexpected ally. Before Blake could respond, the boardroom door opened. Everyone turned to see an older man walk in with confident authority. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and a presence that commanded immediate respect. Jasmine recognized him from company materials. Robert Huntington, Blake's father and founder of Huntington Global Industries. Dad, Blake said with surprise. What are you doing here? Saving my son from making a terrible mistake, Robert replied, moving to the head of the table. Though he had officially retired 3 years ago, every board member straightened instinctively. Martin, playing your little power games again, I see. Robert, this is a matter of company policy and reputation, Martin protested. This is blackmail and manipulation, and we both know it, Robert said bluntly. He looked at Jasmine with kind eyes. You must be Jasmine. Blake has told me a great deal about you. All good things, I assure you. Sir, I apologize for the trouble I have caused, Jasmine began, but Robert held up his hand. You have caused no trouble except to expose the rot that Martin and his sister have been spreading through this company, Robert said. He turned to the board members. How many of you knew about Patricia Caldwell's behavior? How many chose to ignore it because Martin sits on this board? Uncomfortable silence answered him. Robert continued, his voice hard. I built this company on principles of integrity and respect. My son has upheld those principles better than I ever did. If anyone should be questioned here, it is Martin Caldwell for protecting an abusive supervisor and Trevor Knight for illegally photographing and distributing private moments. Trevor? Blake's head snapped around. Trevor took those photos and sent them to Patricia, who sent them to Martin, who leaked them to the press, Robert confirmed. I have been investigating since the photos appeared. The digital trail is quite clear. Trevor, I believe security is waiting to escort you from the building. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Trevor, who had been lurking near the door, went pale. You cannot prove anything. Actually, I can, Rachel Kim said, walking into the boardroom with a tablet. I am Rachel Kim, Miss Rivers' attorney. Trevor sent the photos from his personal email, which he accessed on the company network. IT has full records. He also messaged Patricia Caldwell discussing payment for his services. That is conspiracy to damage the company's reputation and privacy violations. I am filing charges this afternoon. Trevor opened his mouth, then closed it, realizing he was caught. Security officers appeared and escorted him out without another word. Robert turned back to Martin Caldwell. As for you, Martin, consider this your notice. You are off the board. If you fight this, I will make sure every business leader in Chicago knows how you protected workplace abuse and tried to manipulate company leadership. Your choice. Martin looked around the table, but found no support. The other board members avoided his gaze. With fury burning in his eyes, he stood and left without another word. Now, Robert said, looking at the remaining board members. Does anyone else have concerns about my son's relationship with Miss Rivers? Because I should mention that I have reviewed Jasmine's work personally. She is brilliant. If Blake had not found her, I would have recruited her myself. Her small-town background is not a weakness. It is a strength that brings fresh perspective to our urban business bubble. One by one, the board members shook their heads. The meeting was over, and Blake and Jasmine had won. Love's true declaration. After the boardroom cleared, only Blake, Jasmine, and Robert remained. Jasmine collapsed into a chair, shaking from the adrenaline crash. Thank you, she said to Robert. You saved us both. No, my dear, Robert smiled warmly. You saved yourselves by refusing to hide or apologize for genuine feelings. That took courage. He turned to Blake. She is exactly what you need, son. Someone real. Do not mess this up. After Robert left, Blake pulled Jasmine into his arms, holding her tight. I thought I was going to lose you, he murmured against her hair. When you offered to resign, I felt like my heart was being ripped out. I could not let you sacrifice everything for me, Jasmine said, her voice muffled against his chest. Blake pulled back enough to look at her, his gray eyes intense. You are not something I am sacrificing for, Jasmine. You are what I am fighting for. There is a difference. He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing away her tears. I love you. I know it is fast, I know we face challenges, but I am completely certain. You walked into my office crying 3 weeks ago, and somehow you walked into my heart and made yourself at home there. I love your strength, your intelligence, your kindness, your laugh. I love everything about you. Jasmine felt her heart overflow. I love you too. So much it scares me. Then we will be scared together, Blake said, smiling that devastating smile. But we will face it together. No more running. No more doubting. Just us, building something real. He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring every emotion into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Jasmine laughed through her happy tears. So what happens now? She asked. Now, Blake said, taking her hand and lacing their fingers together, we go downstairs and face everyone together. Let them see that we are not ashamed. Let them understand that love is worth fighting for, no matter what obstacles appear. As they walked hand in hand through the offices of Huntington Global, heads turned and whispers followed. But this time, Jasmine did not care. She had found something precious in the last place she expected, true love with a man who saw her worth when she had forgotten it herself. Blake squeezed her hand and smiled down at her. "Ready for the rest of our story?" Jasmine smiled back, her heart full. "With you? I am ready for anything." Epilogue, 6 months later. The wedding venue was a small ranch in Texas, surrounded by fields of wildflowers and blue sky that stretched forever. Blake Huntington married Jasmine Rivers surrounded by her 3 brothers, his father, Rachel Kim as maid of honor, and 50 close friends and family members. It was nothing like the elaborate society wedding Vanessa Ashford had planned in her imagination. It was better. It was real. As Blake kissed his bride under the Texas sun, he thought about that day she had burst into his office in tears. The wrong door had led her to exactly the right place, to him, and to a love that was worth every battle they had fought. Jasmine, now Jasmine Huntington, smiled against her husband's lips and thought about how sometimes the worst moments led to the best beginnings. How tears could turn to joy. How love could be found in the most unexpected places. They had proven everyone wrong. The small-town girl and the CEO, building a life together based on respect, partnership, and a love that refused to be contained by society's expectations. And as they danced their first dance as husband and wife, both knew their story was just beginning.